In an underground boxing ring, Posty, going by the name Carter, dominates a much larger opponent, his sixth victory. The mood shifts dramatically when the wild horse, Dalton, takes off his hoodie and all the enthusiasm immediately leaves Carter's face. Its winner takes it all and Carter chickens out of the fight. Easy money for Dalton. Mad from the loss of $500, a thug stabs Dalton. Unfazed, Dalton stands tall, embodying the stoic demeanor of a Sigma male. The thug really didn't think this through. While Dalton tends to his wound, Frankie approaches him. She recognizes him and shares that she owns a roadhouse plagued nightly by thugs, with the cops being no help. Frankie proposes to hire Dalton as a bouncer, offering $5,000 weekly. Despite the offer, Dalton shows no interest. However, Frankie leaves her number, should he reconsider. Dalton has no phone, no home and his car is a mess. He is fed up with his life and decides this train crossing is a good place to end it. He immediately reconsiders, but his car fails to start up and the train rams into him, barely surviving. Maybe Frankie's offer isn't so bad after all. Finally arriving at the roadhouse, which is literally called the roadhouse, the waiter, Billy, immediately recognizes Dalton. He's somewhat of a celebrity. With no people around, he notes to the barista that the place feels peaceful, at which she lets out a little chuckle. That same evening, a fight breaks out and people just randomly throw bottles and glasses around, with even the live performer chiming in. Dalton is still not getting involved. A biker gang walks in and the barista instantly knows it means trouble. They start trashing the place willy-nilly and Dalton finally steps in. They refuse to step outside and keep trashing the place, to which Dalton starts walking to their bikes, which grabs their attention. Outside he offers them a chance to back off and even goes as far as asking how far is the hospital, before he starts slapping all of them one by one, evading all of their punches and easily finishing the fight. Dalton didn't even work up a sweat and asks for Frankie's car, driving the bikers to the nearest hospital. As Dalton walks away, a nurse, Ellie, calls him a rage-filled dickhead and sarcastically thanks him for filling her ER with irresponsible idiots, when she notices that he's bleeding and offers to patch him up. Seems like the tape didn't do the trick. The nurse questions if he ever wins the fight, to which Dalton just answers that no one ever wins. As he leaves the hospital, some guys are already eyeing him as a potential problem. Back at the roadhouse, Frankie gives Dalton his pay for the week and lets him stay at her boathouse, warning him to be careful of the crocodile. Either way, the boathouse name is the boat. Who comes up with these names? Dalton dreams of his last UFC middleweight world championship fight, where he was the challenger, until the barista wakes him up. She brought him breakfast and shares how the roadhouse has gone through numerous different bouncers and hopes it will be different with him. On his way to the nearest bookstore, Dalton's reputation precedes him. Locals buzz about his recent triumph over a biker gang. His purpose at the bookstore is to use their computer. Suddenly, a disturbance unfolds as a nearby store is being robbed. The bookstore clerk, Charlie, arms herself with a bat and threatens to beat the bikers up if they don't leave. They scoff at her, but once Dalton steps out, he reminds them of their limits. Dalton slowly starts to warm up to the place, making friends all around. Meanwhile, on a boat, the boss of the bikers, Brandt, is getting a shave in shaky waters and wonders why is everyone so dumb around him, not being able to do their job properly. He hired the bikers to scare people off from the local businesses, but Dalton is making that problematic. Back at the roadhouse, another scuffle breaks out because of the taste in music and Dalton teaches Billy some techniques, telling him to take a step back once a knife is pulled. Billy breaks the fight and does just as Dalton instructed, but he steps in himself for the second round, letting Billy handle the rest. Over the next few days, Dalton starts giving Billy some tips. He's a natural. Dalton had noticed one of the workers, Reef, has scars on his knuckles, figuring he's a boxer and he takes him on as Billy's partner, to help maintain the roadhouse in order. Less work for Dalton. Helping a drunk guy find his way out safely, Dalton notices the biker gang outside, promising they will be back. Dalton keeps having nightmares about his UFC career. He wasn't afraid to throw punches or call someone out. A stark contrast to how he is now. Another morning in the roadhouse, where Dalton meets Ellie, again. He wonders why the people are so aggressive around here. Dalton bonds with Ellie, even getting to that more than just friends threshold. After receiving his pay for another week, Dalton decides to walk to the boathouse, when he feels a car stalking him and suddenly speeding in his direction. He barely dodges. But it doesn't stop there. The car reverses and throws Dalton, together with the truck, off the bridge. Dalton survives and as he returns to his boathouse, Del, the biker gang leader, is waiting for him there with a gun. Dalton shoves the table, breaking Del's knees and throwing him outside into the water. He wants to resolve this peacefully, but turns out Frankie wasn't kidding about the crocodile. It chomps Del to pieces. In the morning police look for the body, but a local mentions that crocs hide their food. They won't find it. At the bookstore, Charlie shows him the map of the roadhouse, and something doesn't add up for Dalton. Outside, a man threatens him to get in the car to meet his boss Brandt, but Dalton isn't intimidated, mentioning that without his index finger he won't be able to hold the gun anymore. The guy tries to, but Dalton warned him. If Brandt wants to meet him, he works at the roadhouse every evening. At the roadhouse, Dalton questions Frankie as to why Del was so fixated on this place, but she tells him not to read into it so much, probably some territorial BS. The broken finger man reports to Brandt that he failed to retrieve the bouncer. Brandt's dreams are slowly crumbling because of a single bouncer, when suddenly his dad calls him from prison, but before Brandt speaks to him, he throws the phone out and tells the broken finger to get it back. Meanwhile, Gregor McConnor, after a fun night out, also gets a call from Brandt's father, asking Knox to fix his son's mistakes. He's ready to leave right away. Ellie surprises Dalton with her ex-boyfriend's boat and takes him on a ride in the middle of the sea, her favorite picnic spot. When Dalton mentions getting in trouble with some guy named Brandt, Ellie reveals he comes from some rich family, and owns a significant portion of the local land. Ellie inquires more about Dalton's personal life and that makes him hesitant, mentioning that she doesn't want to know him. But she already knows what happened in his past and is okay with it. The reserved Dalton finally lets his little Billy out. Meanwhile, Knox is finally in town. Parking his Fivavi and knocking over some bikes at Brandt's house, he tells them there's not enough sandwiches for him. As Brandt returns, Knox gives him a good slap from his father, quickly asserting that he's the owner of the place now and will fix his mistakes and the bouncer problem. Brandt somehow manages to persuade Knox to give him another chance to deal with Dalton. When Ellie brings Dalton back to his place, officers are waiting to take him for further questioning regarding his involvement in the incident with Del the other night. At the so-called station, the sheriff warns Dalton to leave the town, otherwise they will have a problem. Dalton's witty responses irritate the sheriff and they pull him out of the car, beat him up and hold at gunpoint, when Ellie suddenly arrives and slaps her old man. She gives Dalton a lift back and reveals that her father and Brandt's old man were good friends, but after he went to prison, the sheriff started to work for Brandt. While all of this is happening, Brandt is on his way to cause some damage to the bookstore. After Dalton returns for his night shift at the roadhouse, Brandt finally pays him a visit. He knows Dalton can't be threatened or bought. He also knows about his past, found it on YouTube, Dalton's last fight where he killed his opponent in a UFC cage. Their situation is similar now, he's won the fight, but he just can't back down. Dalton smirks, but that clearly hit a nerve. Brandt finally lets Knox loose. The whole biker gang is here. Knox walks in, declares that this place is his now and starts smashing things. He finds a babe and steals her right under her man's nose. Billy and Reef notice his unusual behavior and once he starts terrorizing the live group, they try to stop him, but he knocks Billy out and while being held by 3 men, he knocks out Reef also. With 2 of the bouncers knocked out, this starts a full-blown bar fight. Dalton just wanted to enjoy his coffee. Knox menacingly chants for Dalton, revealing he came here just for him. Knox starts with a little tip for Dalton: never let anyone get this close. The two start to go at it, with Knox having a slight advantage, not only in muscle, but manpower as well. He becomes a punching bag for Knox until his 2 boys intervene. Knox forces him outside and beaten up Dalton silently stands up, and starts walking away as Ellie and the police arrive. The bar unfortunately is completely trashed. Dalton packs his bags at the boathouse and Frankie finally comes clean. Brandt wants to build a resort and she's the last holdout that doesn't let him have his way, but he doesn't see how it's his problem. He admits he's afraid, more than she could ever understand. Brandt is notified that Dalton is still alive, as he silently stares at his resort plan. As Dalton is walking towards the bus stop, he sees Charlie's bookstore burned down and the firefighters tell him that an ambulance took Charlie and her father to the hospital. Charlie was the person that greeted him to this town, so he decides he can't leave it like that. Dalton walks to Brandt's place and lets one of his men know that was a line they shouldn't have crossed before breaking his hyoid bone in his throat. He won't be able to breathe anymore. Dalton reveals what he's afraid of, what will happen when somebody pushes him too far. As one of the bikers sees Dalton stuffing the guy in the truck, he quickly comes clean where and when Brandt will be having a meeting, with a lot of cash involved. Dalton sniffs out one of the corrupt cops, knocking him out. The case is full of money, enough for a whole lifetime. He frames the cop for the murder and knocks him out again. Then through a payphone, he calls the police and the news to the spot. Ellie's dad arrives to talk to Dalton just as he's finishing duct taping the explosives, saying Brandt took Ellie and promises to kill her unless Dalton returns the money. It all seems a bit too sketchy to Dalton, but agrees to meet up with the money in case the threat is real. Dalton takes the boat right under Ellie's ex-boyfriend's nose, who is a cop by the way. Knox makes a powerful entrance back to Brandt's estate, but no one is there. Arriving at Brandt's boat, the sheriff is comfortably sitting there for having his daughter kidnapped, which the sheriff reveals as an obvious lie, until Brandt admits that he actually did take her. Brandt just wants his money, He's sick and tired of Dalton always being in his way. Suddenly the psycho Knox is on the horizon and Dalton takes this chance to blow up his explosives. Using this as a distraction, Dalton looks for Ellie. He finds her locked in a room, just as the window bursts open from the pressure. The pair swims out and Dalton engages in water combat. Ellie manages to get it in one of the boats, but Brandt is already there, taking her hostage and is on his way to the roadhouse to destroy it himself, while Knox is having fun with Dalton. Somehow Dalton manages to get on the boat and as Knox is about to strike, he swirls the boat, knocking him off. Brandt swirls his boat around, aiming for a straight collision with Dalton, who miraculously lands on Brandt's boat. As Ellie and Brandt struggle, Dalton charms in and knocks Brandt down. The boat overturns at the roadhouse, but Ellie and Dalton manage to escape just in time. Unfortunately, Brandt survived and Dalton is ready to finish it once and for all. Brandt's attempt to get him with a fishing spear fails, his only lifeline is gone. As Dalton knocks him out, the persistent Knox arrives. They go for round 2, this time it's a fair fight so no excuses. Dalton is holding his own, but Knox is always landing a punch or two extra. Honestly, if you want to see the whole fight, you have to watch it on your own. Dalton had Knox in a headlock. Suddenly Knox manages to stab him in the gut and as he's prepared to nail in the second one, Brandt yells for Knox to kill him. But it annoys Knox, so he disposes of Brandt. This gives Dalton enough time to regain his composure and he begins to penetrate Knox with the wooden sticks, finally finishing him off. The sheriff walks in and tells Dalton he got him covered, but he has to go. At least Frankie has a positive outlook on things, it's fixable. Dalton's bus has finally arrived, just as Charlie's dad finds the case with money and wants to thank him, he's already gone. The roadhouse is going to be fine now. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.